many officers? Yes, sir, that's it. All right. Now that we have all introduced and identified ourselves, I think I'm the only one left. On behalf of the president of this First Indigenous Security Training and Certification Body, NRS, His Excellency Alhaji Salami Isa, and the National Executive Secretary, Dr. E.t.c, permit me to briefly introduce and identify myself. My name is Dr. Osagede Collins Osayanye, a certified security specialist, member, Nigerian Institute for Industrial Security, NRIS. I am an ex-CSO Commander Escort. I am one of the security program facilitators of the aforementioned NRIS, Nigerian Institute for Industrial Security. By the grace of God, I am an ex-CSO Commander Escort. I am the Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer, Safe Integration System. Safe Integration System is a CAC registered consulting agency. We offer consultancy services currently across 4 industries: real estate, security, energy, and general consulting services. Having said that, before we proceed with the slides, best practices in executive protection, let us remind ourselves of the basic tenets of the job security. In view of that, get your notes, get your pen. You don't need to write, but it is important you take notes of salient points. Like we mentioned before, we will make this section interactive and not instructive. That is to say, room is open for everyone to share the knowledge gained based on practical examples, to contribute constructively or to criticize opinions raised by others, or make it cordial, signify the reason of your hand, and you have the floor. That is one of the best ways you can maintain high level of decorum. Moving on. In our basic understanding, or in line with the basic understanding, we have it known already that security has to do with protection of lives and properties. It is globally known and generally accepted. That is the basic. As far as professionalism is concerned, we decided to elevate on the good work of others. How did they come to that generally accepted conclusion? Because there were salient points that was noted. It involves what? Life. It involves properties. The impact of the manifestation of threat to our environment, health and safety, either at workplace, in our community, or in our respective homes. Notwithstanding, we have decided to come up with the fact that security has to do with the level of intelligence attained to identify an attempt by hostile elements to carry out some malicious acts that may result in loss. Vis-a-vis, putting measures in place to guard against loss, which is the major desire of these hostile elements. They are in your companies, they are in your community, they are living in your compound. You can never tell who amongst them poses threats. You must now at all times be guided by what we refer to as VAT. When we say VAT, we are not talking about value-added tax here. What we mean is vulnerability, that before your assets, if give you room to be exploited by virtue of compromise, imminent threat will manifest. Simply put, vulnerability, assets, and threats. That's what we mean by VAT. Not value-added tax. Learn to make use of some acronyms. Within you know what you mean by it. Practically, you begin to express. There are numerous acronyms you come across in the field of security and safety. Professionals like you and I formulated them. True or false? Moving on. Laws have several mediums through which it can occur. You are to guard against loss. That is to say, you are the loss prevention officer. You are the asset protection officer. You are the asset control officer. You are even the legal representative. You may not have gone to law school. Ability to work in line with applicable statutory provisions makes you a legal representative. Security operatives are the set of employees that was hired by virtue of security agreement. But we find out that at the end of the day, we work in virtually every department, positive or negative.
Yes, positive.
In a popular setting. One of my operatives in an hospitality industry where I worked as a team lead, you say, when they are eating, drinking, whining and dining on the 5th floor, they may not remember us. But when there is problem, they run to the ground floor where we are. True or false? True. But that will not distract us. Whether or not we are carried along in the benefits. There's what we call cost and benefit analysis. Our main focus will be putting our impact, which is good, but it is better if the process of putting this impact is in line with the standard operating procedure, and it will be best when we are counting numbers. How do we count numbers? With management. That is to say, how much are we doing? And not the number of loss we are able to give room by virtue of compromise. It is compromise that results in loss. Compromise is the bedrock upon which vulnerability is built. Then if given the opportunity to gain ground, immediate threat before the asset, we exploit it and it will manifest. Therefore, we are at all times advised to do away with familiarity. It is familiarity that gives room for compromise to set in. Therefore, always be friendly in the line of duty, but never familiar. Always be friendly in the line of duty, but never be familiar.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome, sir. With friendliness, we ensure compliance.
Yes.
But with familiarity, we give room for compromise. When compromise sets in, the vulnerability is exploited. Another means through which loss can occur is cases of criminalities. According to the dot line of the crime triangle, which says that before acts of criminality manifest as a threat, there are three basic constituent elements that must combine. The desire to commit that crime, the opportunity to let that desire come into reality. Desire is within. You can never tell on the face of anyone with intent to carry out the malicious act. We said an attempt by hostile elements to carry out some level of malicious act that will result in loss. So your measures that you have put in place to be able to foil that attempt. It is not the number of armed robbers the police officer was able to kill, but it is number of attempted robbery and murder that we were able to foil. When you kill everybody, who will contribute to the gross domestic product of the country? Keep on killing. But let us stop the killing and identify the attempts that may result to someone nurturing the desire to commit crime. Curb it. Another means through which loss can occur can be case of accident. Basically, unsafe acts and unsafe working conditions are responsible for accidents. Only to portrays it that accidents doesn't just occur. The three other constituent elements are human error, which 88% account for.
Sure.
2% as an act of God, and 10% as mechanical error. I take that again. 88% human error, 2% act of God, and 10% mechanical error. Who says security does not have mathematics? 88 plus 2.
90.
90 plus 10. 100. I will not give you room for the opportunity. Another piece through which loss can occur. Cases of emergencies. Take for example fire. Which doesn't just occur on its own too. That's really constituent elements as well. Presence of oxygen. Presence of heat and combustible material. Mark my attendance. Alright, please go now. Oxygen, heat, and combustible material. In some security materials or group discussion like this, you can also hear or see fuel. But the fuel here is not a petrochemical product per se, but any combustible material, if given the opportunity to liaise with the other two elements, there will be fire outbreak, as identified by the fire triangle. Loss can occur through espionage, willful damage, intentional acts of criminality, murder, manslaughter, name them. Natural factors like we said before: flash flood, cyclones, hurricane, earthquake, landslide, volcanic eruption. Is there anyone who can mention another act of God or natural factor? Let us make it interactive. Flood, earthquake. Ladies, the men are ladies. Natural factor that can result to loss. Flood. Someone has mentioned that before. War is not a natural factor. Yes, it's you can say it's a secondary basis from conflict that was mismanaged. Yes. Explosion. Okay. How many of us agree? Let us make it interactive.
On what? Yes. On war.
War
is all about disagreement.
Disagreement. Conflicting situation is secondary level of conflict. Once we get to conflict management, have you been taking on conflict management? No. Very soon. I don't know when next I will meet you, but I am very sure before the end of this program we will meet again. Notwithstanding, we mentioned accidents that can lead to loss. We mentioned cases of emergency. Then we also mentioned acts of criminality. Thank you. Now, the mediums through which loss can occur are numerous. We just want to pinpoint some. By and large, we now observe that I said some of these needs. What do we do as professionals? Remove the opportunity. Leave them with their desire and tools. The tools here may not be hardware like guns or screwdrivers. Sometimes insider threats, the human factor. Those members of your team, who are intentionally carrying out what we call espionage. The act of obtaining or divulging information considered to be confidential without the prior permission of the rightful owner is known as espionage. I take that again. The act of divulging or obtaining information considered to be confidential without the prior permission of the rightful owner is an act of espionage. Yes, please.
Can we also say that it's an act of stealing of information?
Exactly. Because what was not rightfully given to you, now found in your possession, you are already a suspect. Then when proven guilty or not guilty by the court of law, then we cannot say, okay, you are guilty of that crime. But at that moment when it is found in your possession, you are a suspect. Let's set the record straight. Across the globe, cases of emergency, let's say for example fire, we have a globally recognized and generally accepted firefighting formula. Pass. 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 Where P stands for pull the pin of the specific type of fire extinguisher to extinguish the class of fire. There are different classes of fire, so also there are different types of fire extinguishers. If you come for fire training proper, you can dwell more on that. Pull the pin, aim the base, which is the source.
Yes.
Squeeze the lever and sweep from side to side. Pull the pin, aim the base, squeeze the lever and sweep from side to side. There are two standard measures you can use to combat crime and guard against loss. The proactive measure and the reactive measure. The facility in question will now determine how you build any of these measures in line with PPS requirements, physical protection system. Nature of business in your facility differs from the nature of business in this man's facility. Notwithstanding, threat, risk, and assessments to move forth recommended for each facility. Where the focus of the proactive measure is to ensure there is some preventive measure that can guide us to deter that loss from attempting to foiling it. Unlike the reactive measure, whose focus is response and recovery. Meaning it must have happened, we are not looking for how to bounce back to business. Which one do you think is better, proactive or reactive?
Proactive.
Proactive. That the focus is to deter an attempt to stop it from happening. Unlike the reactive. Should any of these measures fail or not able to meet up to expectation, there is some level of loss that was still encountered. You are in the right position to inform the business owners about the situation report. The report should not be based on your feelings. It should not be based on your emotions. It It shouldn't be based on your opinion, but rather security department collective opinion. That is to say, the report you are putting forth, either preliminary, that is what just happened, progress report after you have gone, or final report when you have concluded the investigation. You should provide answers to 5WH. 5WH. It tends to ask exhaustive investigative questions to the field of security. Your report should be able to mention what happened, when did it happen, where. Thank you. I love this class. We are following. 5WH. What, who, when, where, how, and why. Not until your report has answered these questions, sir, ma'am, you have not completed that investigation. In a nutshell, you must be able to identify the root cause of the situation. What led to it? You must be able to unravel it. Without identifying the root cause, we cannot analyze the effects. I will talk this security. I hope we are getting along with this concept. Moving on. Having said that, you must at all times work with these basic tenets, which we have titled Fundamentals of Industrial Security Operations, otherwise known as basics. We now move on to proceed with the slides. But before doing so, in the course of this course, we did mention you should avoid acting based on your feelings, your opinion, or emotion. Therefore, you must be neutral. Neutrality therefore demands that. The only thing, the one and only thing you remember when you are on duty is the requirement of your standard operating procedure, your SOP. That's your golden book of security. As the Christians work with the Bible, the Muslims work with the Quran. Security operatives, irrespective of the job title, work with the standard operating procedure. Being you, General Security Manager, Inspector General of Police, DG, Air Force Marshal, Chief of Naval Staffs, Certified Security Specialist, Certified Protection Officer, Certified Protection Professional, Certified Security Manager, E.t.c. Make them, the job titles are numerous. We have one common goal. What is our common goal? Guarding against loss. Simple. Once again, my name is Dr. Osagede Collins Osagede. Do we have a constructive criticism or contribution? Osagede Collins.
That's right. You can only pronounce Mr. Collins. It's okay. Collins is okay.
The realtor is just a professional title, meaning real estate consultant. Real estate consultancy is part of our services in safe integration system. And as well also search us on Facebook, safepropertyservice, spelled together, put SPS. That of the security, safe security service, spelled together,
SSS.
put space, SSS. The energy, safe energy service, spelled together, put space, put SES. We are looking for more products, more viable business to introduce into the system of safe integration system, where we serve you with integrity at its peak. Thank you very much. God bless us. Do we have questions on the fundamentals? Yes, sir. All right, please do.
During your illustration,
Yes, sir.
the human error score 88%.
Yes.
act of God is true, then mechanical is there.
Yes, sir.
But I would like you to portray more on why act of God
It's only two. Thank you very much. I love that constructive contribution. Yes, the act of God is only rated 2% because it is not common to the entire globe. It is in some countries. Take for example, do we have across this country, Nigeria, where earthquakes happen often? No. But in some countries, they see it almost often. It happens regularly.
Sure.
Now, if you take a deeper analysis based on the research, natural threats are not common to all countries, even if in some selected countries. It is not something that happens almost all the time in some of these countries. So it rarely occurs across the globe. And moreover, there has been no measures that can be developed by human to curb natural factors from occurring. Is there any measure that they are put in place to stop flooding? You can only control it and mitigate the impact on health, safety, and environment. I hope that was helpful, sir. Any other question? Constructive criticism or contribution? So we can begin with this slide. Best practices in executive protection. If you take a deeper evaluation of what we have discussed over, the fundamentals of industrial security, otherwise known as basics, you now agree with us that we, in entirety, human, we are all executives. True of us. We are all equal and unique in the eyes of the Most High God. And on earth, in our different ways. Let's say, guys, morning this morning. I'm good. That makes everyone an executive. That makes individually a VIP on his own. Then the protection of your own self becomes your responsibility. The protection of your immediate environment and family becomes your responsibility. You are already an executive protection agent. True of us. That is to say, your martial arts are good as an executive protection agent. Your body build is fine. Your years of experience and certifications is also good. But do you know the best? When embarking on the executive protection task, awareness remains the best skill. Don't be caught in the web of complacency and be taken unaware. After years of experience, martial arts, certifications, body build, big enough to cover this man, but at the end of the day, you lack the awareness to identify and attempt by hostile elements. Imagine your executive, whom you are giving security cover, is the one who give work. Is that not a fail safe?
Sure.
It's a disaster. They're taking time on, waiting to explode. That is to say, in that line of words, the greatest of all threats is that unaware. When taking unaware. You have been consulted for a task ahead. Remember the popular sentiment, early to bed, early to rise. It's not everything that they say village people. Sometimes we are in village. Thank God it's Friday. The majority of us will leave the club by 0400 hours on Saturday morning. And meanwhile, you are supposed to emboss by 0600 hours. Now tell me, is that your feeling? You are going to remain in the club and tell me, before getting home, what time will it be? After you be alert, you got yourself drunk all night long and exhausted. Extracurricular activities that follow at the wrong time. Let us try as much as possible. Remember, the only thing and one and only thing you work with is your word SOP, your standard operating procedure. Remove the opportunity that may arise for these hostile elements to carry out their attempts. The opportunity is from where? The dot line of the crime triangle. That is desire, opportunity, and tools. So that you not create VAT. The VAT is not value added tax. But for the liability that before your asset, if giving room as a result of compromise, now manifests as an opportunity. The imminent threat before your asset will manifest. If this is the only three things we take home today, was it a good discussion segment? Moving on with best practices in executive protection. Thank you very much.